Welcome back to the Shift It podcast. We're going to launch this podcast after a bit of a hiatus with a bang. And we're doing that because we're joined here with a very close friend of the Formulite family, Alexandra. You would know her as Keeping Up with Alex from our social pages. And she has been a huge advocate for Formulite and for our product. And we're joined by Alex. Welcome, Alex. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
And we're going to basically talk about your journey.
Yeah,
excited. Journey, pre-Formulite, after Formulite, pre-surgery, post-surgery, launch with a couple of questions. So, bariatric surgery, all right. Was there ever any hesitation in going into it? Did you have fears that,
Well, when I made the decision, I had absolutely no hesitation before I'd even spoken to a surgeon. And to understand that, you'd need to understand why I chose to go down this road. So I had struggled with my weight since being a child. I remember being the chubby kid and comparing my body to others from as young as 8 years old. And for a while, the last couple of years, I'd gotten into the body positive movement and intuitive eating, but I was always hungry. All the time, and eventually my weight ballooned. But I didn't realize it because what I saw in the mirror wasn't reflective of what I'd actually looked like. So when I started to see photos or videos of myself and I didn't recognize that person in the mirror, that was really jarring to me. And then my weight stopped me from doing things that I wanted to be doing. And so when I realized this and had come off GLP-1s and put on more weight, I immediately went, I need something that's a permanent fix. And I'd had a close friend that had bariatric surgery almost half a decade ago and had done really well. And so immediately in my mind, I'm a very stubborn person. And when I make a decision, I pretty much see it through. And so from that moment that I made the decision, there was no hesitation before even speaking to a surgeon because I'd spoken to my close, friend and I knew a bit about the journey and off I went.
It's great. It's great to have that sort of sounding board of someone who's sort of tested it before, can give you the honest feedback, a real life story.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I definitely did have a few fears. The only fear that I really had was that it wouldn't work for me, that I would somehow be immune to getting 80% of my stomach cut out, which sounds absolutely ridiculous. But when you've been through a journey of being overweight your whole life and you've been through every diet plan, exercise plan, wellness plan under the sun, this really is your last option. And so when you decide to go down that road, there is a real fear that it's not going to work for you.
So, you've seen the surgeon. You confirmed that you're a candidate for surgery. I'm assuming they would then also talk to you about your pre-op diet.
Yep.
Which is what most patients have to go through when they have bariatric surgery. Was there any other preparation you needed to do in yourself prior to the surgery?
Absolutely. I had to wait 12 months for my private health to kick in so that I was able to get and pay for my bariatric surgery because obviously it's quite expensive if you do it completely out of pocket. And I didn't want to wait 12 months to get started. I wanted to start living life the way that I would be post-gastric sleeve surgery now. So as part of that, I decided to do a really extensive preparation and I decided to go back on GLP-1s as part of my my pre-op preparations. And I started taking them, I think it was probably about 6 to 7 months before my surgery. And the goal of this, I am a fan of GLP-1s, but I think that there is a little bit of a misconception that you can take them and then come off them and everything's going to be perfect. For many people, that's not the reality. And when you come off GLP-1s, there's research now that shows within sort of 18 to 24 months, you will regain all of the weight that you had lost for many patients. And because I knew surgery was coming, I knew that GLP-1s would be a great way for me to get a kickstart between now and my surgery date, which would be the permanent fix. So I decided to go back on GLP-1s and start dieting, exercising, and living the way that I would be post-op. And that was sort of the preparation that I had done. I really started focusing on whole food nutrition, moving my body regularly in ways that I enjoyed. And I think that really helped to set me up for success so that when I got to pre-op and then also in the diet post-op, it wasn't such a big shock to me as it would have been had I not done this dietary and movement prep.
And I think you summarised it really well there by saying that you set yourself up for success. So not only did you get your body ready, you got yourself in the right mindset. And did you find, I suppose in hindsight it's hard to know, but it wasn't as much of a shock going into the surgery because you'd already adopted those practices and that mindset?
Yeah, not at all. I found the transition to be really simple. I know for a lot of people, starting a pre-op diet can be really jarring because it is really restrictive.
Very.
And for some people, they're on it for up to 4, sometimes 6 weeks, depending on who their surgeon is and what their starting weight is. And when you're on a diet that really only allows limited calories and there's so many foods that you're not able to consume, that can be incredibly jarring, very restrictive, and it really starts to make you feel quite anxious about what's to come in the future and, you know, what you are and aren't going to be able to eat. But because I'd already had that foundation and sort of really started to work on healing my relationship with food and seeing it more as nutrition and joy rather than an emotional coping mechanism, I think that really did help set me up for success post-op.
So, you know, I follow the bariatric surgery groups on socials, and there are people, everyone has their opinion, but there are a lot of people who are looking for permission as to, I'm on the pre-op, it's okay if I have a little cheat day, this and that. So what are your thoughts about that sort of?
Look, looking back on my experience, I'm really proud of how I conducted myself throughout pre-op. I didn't have any cheat days or cheat meals. However, in saying that, I think there's a misconception that pre-op is there to help you lose the most amount of weight before surgery. Now, for some people, this might be the case if they have a really high starting weight to make surgery safer for them with the anaesthesia. But the purpose of pre-op, to my understanding, is to do things like shrink your liver to make the surgery safer. I don't necessarily think that it is the best idea to have, foods that are not on your pre-approved list. But in saying that, if you were to have, I don't know, a small snack that's not on your pre-approved list, but 99.9% of the rest of the time, you've been able to adhere to your pre-op diet, then I think that's fantastic. Because in reality, no one's perfect. And the goal is to shrink your liver so that surgery is safer. But I think as much as possible, it's really important to be sticking to those pre-approved foods.
Excellent. So what would you say that your biggest struggles were post-op? So even especially with your diet.
I definitely struggled in the first 2 weeks during the liquid phase.
Yeah.
So there's a few things that I struggled with. The first 2 weeks during the liquid phase, I wanted to chew on something so bad after the first week. I was so sick of liquid that I think I remember like pureeing a soft cheese in my mouth to be a liquid. And that's probably something that I shouldn't have done. But in hindsight, I was just trying to get through the 2 weeks. That was something that I struggled with because especially when you're doom scrolling on TikTok or Instagram and there's so many videos, mukbangs, things that people are trying to eat. I remember literally crying over a mukbang because the food looked so good. And, doing liquids for just over 2 weeks because I had to do 3 or 4 days of liquid before the surgery as well because GLP-1s slow your gastric emptying. So I wanted to make sure that was nice and clear for surgery. But for the most part, I didn't find it overly bad. I was just really craving something savoury. But post that, my other struggle post-op was when I started getting something called silent reflux, which is something I didn't know about until I had experienced it myself. And it was something that really scared me because I didn't know what it was when I started to experience it. But silent reflux, you don't get that spicy feeling in your stomach or your throat. What you experience is intense hunger. And when you've had your stomach cut out 3 to 4 weeks before and you're wondering how on earth you literally feel like you're starving, you then start to get those doubts that I was talking about before that, oh my goodness, the surgery didn't work. Why am I hungry? When I noticed that, hold on, something's a bit off here was when, I'd had a shake and I could feel that I was physically full, but I felt hungry at the same time. And I'm like, this is weird. So I immediately called my surgeon's office to speak to speak to them about what I was going through, and they mentioned that it was silent reflux. So we upped my, stomach acids and went from there. And that was really reassuring because my worst fear was that the surgery wouldn't work.
Yeah, that's scary. Yeah, definitely.
Other struggles I've had post-op, a lot of it has been to do with how I manage my autoimmune condition. Quite a lot of the time, if I'm having a pain flare-up, I need to go on prednisolone, which is a type of steroid. And that can really give you the ring about when it comes to hunger and cravings, and trying to understand what is a genuine craving and hunger versus what is steroid induced. And just being kind to myself during those periods where I definitely am probably eating more than I would be if I wasn't on them. That's something that my mindset, I do struggle with a little bit, but I'm getting there.
I suppose reminding yourself sometimes there is, a step backward to go forward.
100%.
And it can't, life isn't all about going, get everything going your way.
Right.
So, yeah.
100%. And one of the things that I think about when I go through that is what a lot of people don't realize about dieting or, being in a calorie deficit is that when you've been in a deficit for so long, your body eventually equalizes at that point, and that becomes your new set point. So the way that I've tried to reframe my mindset is that when I am on prednisolone and I'm consuming more calories than I would be, it's almost like a what they call reverse dieting. So then when I go back to my regular ways of eating, my body's better in a deficit and can handle that, and then the weight starts to come off again. So I think it's just about educating yourself and then changing your mindset around the circumstances that you're in.
When did you find post-op that the diet got easier and it was sort of more palatable?
Well, again, I think because I had done such extensive prep pre-op, it wasn't overly difficult for me, but when it really started to get easier was when I was able to add more variety into my diet. So coming off, you have 2 weeks where you're on liquids only, 2 weeks of puree, 2 weeks of soft food, and then you move into being able to introduce solid food. I think once I started to be able to introduce solids and could have that variety in taste, texture, flavors, that's when it really started to become easier for me because I had more variety and my mind wasn't just focusing on what I couldn't have, which is those restrictive phases. You tend to focus a little bit on the things that you can't have, which is difficult.
Yeah. And what have you found that most people assume about the post-bariatric diet but isn't actually incorrect, isn't actually in fact correct? So.
I think the biggest misconception is that you're never going to be able to enjoy food or going out with your friends and that sort of thing again. Don't get me wrong, it does look very different to what it did pre-operation, but I'm still able to go out with friends and enjoy a meal. It's just smaller. A lot of the time, some people do have food aversions where they might not be able to eat certain things because it doesn't sit well on their stomach. For the most part, I've been very fortunate. I haven't experienced anything that I've not been able to enjoy in moderation, but I think the biggest misconception is that you'll never be able to enjoy food again.
So, well, what's the one thing that someone undergoing sleeve surgery would need to get right in that first 12 weeks in your mind?
I think the biggest thing to get right is starting to heal your relationship with food and understand why you're in the position that you're in. I think for me, a lot of it is hormone imbalances, and research is consistently showing that a lot of overweight or, people who are considered clinically obese do have increased ghrelin and leptin resistance, which does mean that you're hungrier and less satisfied. But beyond that, you need to really start looking at why you're eating the foods that you're eating, what's driving that. Are you experiencing binge eating? Are you getting such intense feelings of hunger that you're ending up eating food that's not necessarily the best choice because it's calorie dense and satiating? Could you be having better choices beforehand? But yeah, I think really reflecting on how you got to where you are and where you want to be is probably the first thing that you need to get right.
So talking about restriction after surgery, you've already indicated that the silent reflux brought back those fears of, is it not working, this and that. Once you got past that and knew that it was the silent restriction, do you still have that concern that maybe 3 or 5 years down the track that restriction might come off?
Absolutely. And I don't think there's a single bariatric patient that doesn't have the fear that, in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time, you're going to be in a different position, or you haven't done the right things and you have stretched your sleeve. I definitely do still have those fears, but I'm really trusting the foundations that I've set to carry me through, because I think I've got some really great routines in place that, even now when I'm experiencing hunger and cravings as a result of the steroids I'm on to treat my autoimmune condition, I trust those habits to carry me through because they're my foundation and what I'm setting myself up for success with.
So what's something that you can do now but you couldn't do before that has nothing to do with the number on the scales?
There are so many things. And this was very much my why for getting surgery. I never strived to be a certain size or a certain weight or have my body look a certain way. I decided to get surgery because my body wasn't allowing me to do things, whether that was because I didn't feel good enough or feel as if I was worthy of those things, or because the weight was genuinely restricting me. Some of those things are shopping.
Yeah.
I have always loved fashion, but when you are a certain size, not all shops are accessible to you. And for a really long time, I couldn't just go down. I live in Adelaide and our main shopping strip is Rundle Mall. I couldn't just go down Rundle Mall and go into any shop and pick what to wear. If I had an event, I had to be really strategic about where I shopped. I'd have to go online and look weeks in advance and plan it. No last minute costume hires or things like that. So being able to go shopping, even on Depop and secondhand, choosing really nice clothes is great. One thing I'd really love to try again, I'm terrified of horses. I'd really like to go horse riding. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that's something that I can do now. Whilst it, yes, does have something to do with the weight on the scale, I think as well it's just realizing that I can do these things. I really want to start dating soon and I feel confident enough to do that now, whereas before I'd really been shut off to the possibility that I was worthy of a relationship or attractive to other people. Now I don't feel that way at all, and I feel like it's really important going into that it's not just about them liking me, I need to like them too, and that's important. So yeah, dating, just going out with my friends and being confident, like wearing colours. This is something that I never would have done pre-surgery. I would have been pretty much dressed in all black. Sometimes I'd have some colourful things, but I'd never be wearing some crazy print with tomatoes and pink stripes on it and a blue top and an orange sweater. But I really love colour and it makes me happy. So being able to do things like that now really fill me with a lot of joy.
So I know you'll love talking about this topic, hair loss after bariatric surgery.
Yeah.
So you tell me about how you've managed that, because you seem to have turned into quite the guru when it comes to hair loss. What have you done to try and minimise that?
I've been really fortunate in that I haven't lost a lot of hair. I have started losing a little bit. Right here you can see almost like a little bald spot. But for the most part, I've been very fortunate. I've seen people losing fistfuls of hair in their bariatric journey. And I think for the most part, my mission post-op was I didn't want to starve myself. I didn't go and get bariatric surgery to eat as little as possible. I want to just be able to eat normal size amounts. So I went into this going, I really want to make sure I'm nourishing my body post-operation. So I made sure that I was sipping protein like it was my full-time goal with the shakes and the waters, that when I could eat food, I was actually having enough food to sustain me, not just, I'm going to have 2 bites and I'm not hungry anymore, so I'm going to stop eating. I was really making sure that I was nourishing my body with different nutrients, fats, proteins, carbs, fiber, all those sorts of things. And I've obviously got quite a robust hair care routine as well when it comes to hair loss. And because I have started noticing a little bit of loss now, I have started using a medicated hair serum, which I'm finding great success with.
Fantastic. I'd love to talk about what led you to Formulite. How did you discover Formulite?
Well, Formulite was one of the 3 options that was presented to me by my bariatric team. So I was offered Formulite and 2 others. To me, the Formulite plan looked the best, although I hadn't tried the products yet. And I was really fortunate when you reached out to me to see if I wanted to try them. I am so fussy when it comes to protein. And I had previously tried one of the options, as many bariatric patients have probably done a shake diet once in their life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I knew I didn't like that particular option. It was too sickly sweet and I could taste the protein. So when you reached out to me and I got to try the brand, immediately I was like, yes, this is going to be my option. There was no proteiny aftertaste. I followed the instructions, which is really important. I find a lot of people shake and then drink. You've got to leave it for 30 minutes. And through doing that, I realized it was actually delicious. And I was like, I got this sense of reassurance, like, oh, I'm going to be okay during pre-op and post-op because I've got something that I can actually tolerate. Like, it's not going to be miserable. And so that's what led me to Formulite, and then I guess secured my choice in choosing to go through with Formulite, and I'm still drinking it every day now.
Fantastic. When you're on the GLP-1s, were you looking at your nutrition then? Were you focused on getting protein in?
Definitely not as much as I am now, because I think pre-op I had larger stomach capacity, so I could eat more food. I didn't have to be quite as conscious because I didn't have to be as strategic with what I was eating, but I was definitely very focused on having whole foods. And I think that at some point, like the carnivore diet and the animal diet was trending on social media. And I very much sort of took on board that fruits, fats, meat, didn't really have any processed food, and focused on that while I was on the GLP-1s, which I found really satiating and actually quite enjoying. Plus, when you have an autoimmune condition, sometimes cooking, the chronic fatigue that comes with an autoimmune condition can be debilitating. And the thought of putting together some kind of meal is just too much. Whereas the thought of just being able to cook a piece of steak or a piece of chicken, serve that with some blackberries, avocado, maybe some steamed broccoli and a bit of nuts, perfect. And so that's what I did throughout my GLP-1 journey.
Fantastic. So how hard was it to integrate Formulite into your diet? And where did you experiment?
It was so simple for me. I really wanted to find something that I could do long term. And one of the things that I really love about Formulite, other than the taste, I do have my favorites, by the way. Banana and coffee together at the moment is top tier. But what I found simple about it is I could just have it with my morning coffee. It didn't have to be an additional thing. I am a milk coffee drinker and I love an iced latte. That is my drink of choice. And throughout pre-op, I realized I wouldn't be able to have milk. And I went, oh my God, how am I going to have my caffeine? Because again, chronic fatigue that comes with autoimmune conditions can be debilitating. But also, I have never understood how people who don't drink coffee get through the day. I'm like, oh, you guys are superheroes. I don't understand. So I initially thought, I'm like, oh, I could use the vanilla protein and use that as my milk base in my coffee. And that's how easy it was. And so that's how I've integrated Formulite into my diet and continued to do that. I do that literally 7 days a week. My morning coffee is a Formulite base, and then my morning snack is normally half a Formulite bar. It's easy, it's convenient. I don't have to think about it. It's great.
Now, bar-wise, can you tell me about your experience when you first tried the bars, and had you tried bars before?
Yeah. I had tried a lot of protein bars before. I have been in the gym and wellness and diet space for God knows how long, and tried numerous bars. When I initially tried the Choc Crisp bar that you offer, and I was like, oh my God, this is actually quite good. And I remember ordering a whole box of them, and I thought, oh, I'm not really going to like the lemon coconut and white chocolate one, so I'll just get a couple of those to see me through. Because, I was a chocolate girly. But when I tried the lemon coconut and white chocolate bar, I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever had. And obviously when you're on pre-op as well, anything like that, which feels like a little bit of a sweet treat, you're going to be like, this is it. This is great. And still now, lemon, coconut, white chocolate, absolute favorite.
Yeah,
top
your
tier.
go-to.
Yeah, my go-to bar.
Your go-to.
Love it.
Fantastic. How do you so tell me, you will have half of it or whole? How do you integrate it into your diet?
It just depends on how hungry I am, to be honest. They are meal replacements. So if I'm having a whole one, I definitely don't try and have that like on top of a lunch or whatever. Sometimes when I'm on the steroids, which do increase my hunger, I have a full bar and I'm like, it's better I'm having that than like a pizza or a burger or whatever, because it keeps me satiated and the fiber helps too. But for the most part, I'll have half a bar, I'll chop it up into little bite-sized pieces and pop into one of my mini containers, and off I go to work with it.
Yeah, Why bite-sized pieces? Why do you
It's
do
just
that?
easy to grab and snack on. And also because I only have half a bar at a time, what else am I going to do with half a bar? So it gives me somewhere to
Yeah,
store it as well, but
yeah.
it's nice just to be able to snack on the little pieces.
Yeah, rather than chomping on it
Yep.
like a bit of an animal
Yeah,
at work.
exactly.
Yeah, it's like you're being very ladylike. Yeah, I
Yes.
love it. I love it. No, great idea, great tip. What in your mind, what would you like Formulite to develop next?
I have been asking for a strawberry flavoured shake since I first got Formulite, mainly because I do love a strawberry matcha and I would love to be able to make a strawberry matcha with a protein base.
Okay, there's the challenge. Make a strawberry shake so
Make
that
a
you
strawberry
can make
shake,
a strawberry
please.
matcha. All right, I'm onto it. So if your surgeon or dietitian asked you today why you use Formulite specifically, what would you say to them?
It makes achieving my protein goals so easy. I know that I'm giving myself a good nutrition base to start every single day with, and it's easy to integrate into my day-to-day life. I don't even have to think about it. It is effortless.
What are your protein goals every day? What are you trying to hit?
Every single day I try and hit between 100 and 120 grams of protein. And with the way that I mix my Formulite shake with high protein milk, I'm getting in 45 grams in with my breakfast, add in 2 halves of a protein bar. If I have 2 halves of a protein bar, that's 65 grams of protein without even considering like my lunch and my dinner. So it's easy.
Great. Because it can be hard.
It definitely can be hard. Yeah. And I think the protein water also helps with that. That bumps me up. I normally have one half serve or a full serve every day, which gets me between an extra 8 and 16 grams of protein with the tasteless protein water that you guys do. And it just makes it simple. It can be really hard, but I think you need to treat it as your full-time job and be strategic with what you're eating to hit those goals.
Tell me more about that tasteless protein. How do you incorporate that into your diet?
Pretty much as soon as I get up every morning, I make my shots of coffee that I put in the fridge. I mix up my protein shake and then I mix up my protein water. And I mix up my protein water. I also have some tasteless fiber, which I add into that. And I just mix it into a water bottle that I have with some ice and some sugar-free cordial.
Oh, great. Yes. Yeah. Great idea to put a little flavouring in there because otherwise, it's hard to consume. So, no, that's great. Oh, you've got it down pat.
Yeah.
Sounds like you've got
I've got a very solid routine when it comes to my protein and supplements, that's for sure.
So what do people assume about the whole pre and post-op diets that you think couldn't be further from the truth?
I think one of the it's not so much a misconception. I think it's more of an over-dramatization that it is going to be, especially pre-op when you haven't had the surgery yet and you're on such a restrictive diet, that it is going to be the hardest thing you've ever had to do. I think the reason that people think that is because it is so restrictive. But I think one of the things that make it easier, previously I would eat like I would on pre-op when I was going on a diet, except that diet never had an end date. Pre-op has an end date because it is a set period of time before you're going into your operation. And so I think understanding that it's not necessarily going to be it is difficult, but it's not going to be the hardest or anything that's impossible because there's an end date in sight. I think the biggest misconception, as I mentioned previously about life post-op is that you'll never enjoy food again. And that just couldn't be further from the truth.
Not the case.
You just enjoy it in a different way.
So for someone considering bariatric surgery, but they're sort of hesitant, what would be your advice to them?
My advice would be to really think about your why. Why do you want to get bariatric surgery? And does the fear outweigh your why? I think for me, my body was stopping me from living my life to the fullest. My fear when you go into any type of surgery, you're under anesthesia, right? There's a chance that there are going to be complications or things might not go right. But for me, my fear of not living my life to the fullest was so much more intense and important for me to overcome that than the fear of something going wrong during surgery. I knew I would have regretted not trying because I was really stuck between a rock and a hard place. If I hadn't have gone down this road, I would have either been on GLP-1s forever, which is not financially sustainable. And we don't know the long-term effects of GLP-1s either. What effect would that have had on my body? Or I would have ended up, I don't know what size I would have ended up, to the point where I would have been so miserable and depressed. Like it was an easy choice. So just really think about your why and understand, is it worth the risk? For a lot of people it will be, for some people it might not be, and that's okay too.
So before you went into the surgery, you had that friend that you spoke with.
Yep.
And that was great. But now that you've been through the whole process and journey, is there something that you would like to go back and tell your old self that you think may have made it easier?
I think just knowing that everything's going to be okay, that I am setting the foundations right for myself by focusing on my journey before the surgery and starting to get things right then and there, that you don't have to wait for your surgery date to get started. You can start now, that everything will be okay. It's not going to be as difficult or as hard as some people make it out to be. Maybe their experience is more difficult because of the complications they've suffered. Maybe their relationship with food is difficult. But if you go through all those bits and pieces, it's going to be easier than you ever imagined.
Now, I'm sure people set themselves, and you may have done this too, post-op goals.
Yeah.
All right, I want to get to this stage by this stage. I want to have lost this much weight by 6 months, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Did you have post-op goals? How did you manage them when it looked like you were or weren't going to achieve them? Yeah.
My surgeon and I definitely did discuss where I could end up. Basically, when you have bariatric surgery, they take the highest weight you've ever been, not necessarily the highest weight from your surgery date. And the likeliness is that you'll lose 25 to 30% of the weight from your highest weight. And so if I landed somewhere within that, I was really happy. But for me, as I mentioned previously, my why was that my body was stopping me from doing the things that I wanted to do. I went into this journey not caring what my body looks like, not caring about what my weight would be, not caring about what my size would be. I just wanted to be able to live my life to the fullest. That was my goal. And I am very lucky that throughout the foundations I've set with prioritizing my protein and front loading my protein in the morning, finding ways to move my body that I actually really enjoy, that I have been able to hit my surgeon's 12-month goal for me by the 7th month mark. And that was to be under 85 kilos with 35% muscle and 35% body fat.
Brilliant.
And so through those foundations, I've been able to achieve that. And from here on out, if I didn't lose another kilo, I am unbothered. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to lose more weight, but it's not going to be a priority anymore because I can live my life to the fullest now. And for me, it's about continuing that healthy journey and making sure that I can live my life to the fullest and do the things that I want to do. And I think it's really important to have some kind of loose goals, but I don't recommend that anyone comes into this journey going, oh, I want to look like Britney Spears in the 2000s. I need to be a size A and under 60 kilos. It's just, beauty standards are always changing. And I think it is just so important to really zoom out and have a more holistic understanding of what it is that you want to achieve through going through bariatric surgery.
I'd like to talk about your autoimmune condition.
Yep.
Okay, because I know that really hampered your life pre-op and took you some very dark places, and it was hard to live with. Can you tell us about what it was like pre-op and how things have changed now post-op?
Absolutely. So I was diagnosed with a condition which was called ankylosing spondylitis. I think it's now called, I can't even remember what it's called. It's some ridiculous name that they've chosen now. But I was diagnosed with that in September of, I want to say 2024. And basically my autoimmune condition means that I experience really chronic back pain. And when you experience chronic pain, as you've touched on, it can take you to a really dark place because it can be really debilitating and exhausting. Other symptoms that come with autoimmune conditions are chronic fatigue. And when you experience chronic fatigue and people talk about tiredness, it is a type of tiredness where you could have a really good 10-hour sleep, but you wake up and you can immediately go to bed for another 10 hours and just you're so exhausted beyond comprehension. And then there's the brain fog that comes with it, right? I remember this brain fog being so bad, I had literally questioned my own sanity. I had started to be really concerned for my future and what I would be able to achieve professionally. Sorry.
No.
At the age of 33, no one should have to go through that at any age really, but especially when you're young. It can also be incredibly isolating, because lots of people don't understand what it's like living with that. And chronic conditions or autoimmune conditions, people say, "I hope you'll feel better soon." The problem is that you've got this for life. So it's about management. And so life pre-op for me was really difficult. And going into surgery, I actually had to come off all the medication that I used to manage my autoimmune condition, which was terrifying because about a month and a half before I started pre-op, I had an incredibly bad flare-up. I remember driving to the doctor's office and I went to go see a good GP, which lived an hour away from me. The pain was so intense and had been for days. I was hysterically crying. And I remember driving past these trees in the Adelaide Hills thinking, if I can't get help, I just want to crash into one. Like it was that bad. And there is a really strong correlation and causation really between suicide rates and people who have chronic pain. And I just want to highlight that as well because at the moment, March is Autoimmune Awareness Month. And so I really just want to put a spotlight on the people that go through this every day because it is really difficult. And so, life pre-op.
The silent pain.
It is the silent pain and it's there with you every single day. When I started the pre-op diet, I was kind of in the mindset that as I was going through surgery, I wanted to try an elimination diet. If you're someone with an autoimmune condition, you're probably really aware that there can be some dietary triggers that come with an autoimmune condition that make your symptoms worse. And I thought this would be a really perfect time to start trialing and cutting things out and understanding how my body responds. So throughout pre-op, obviously, it's pretty much you're having your protein, you're not mixing it with any dairy, you're having vegetables, you're having fruits. There was no added meats, no dairy, no processed or confectionery items. And then obviously you have your surgery and you're in the liquid phase. So as I started to go then through the liquid phase, the puree and the soft foods is when I slowly started to introduce things to understand how my body would respond and what would make my symptoms worse. And throughout that, I discovered I actually have a bit of a, sadly, a gluten intolerance.
Okay.
So I'm not celiac, so I definitely can still handle small volumes of gluten, but it's not something now that I have on the daily because what I find is I start to get like body aches and pains. I don't know if you ever experienced growing pains as a child, like those aching bones. That's what it feels like for me. And through cutting out a lot of refined sugars and gluten, I've definitely noticed my pain has gotten better. Unfortunately, though, over the last couple of months, we've realised that the biologic medication that I'm on, I'm not responding to very well. So going through a whole process now to get onto hopefully something that will work better just because the pain that I'm in still most days is not great. But through getting bariatric surgery, it's definitely gotten better. I no longer experience brain fog, which is great because that really made me question what I'd be able to achieve in future. And unless I'm in a flare up, my chronic fatigue has gotten a lot better as well. Now it's just about the pain management. So, and that's something that unfortunately has not necessarily gotten better with bariatric surgery that I was hoping would. But to have my brain fog gone and my sanity intact, I'm grateful for.
Still early days, Alex.
It is. Yeah.
Still early days.
For sure.
You've come so far. It sounds like you've got such, quality of life has improved so far that, I suppose what we do is we forget to look back on where we came from.
100%.
I know I'm feeling average now, but God, thank God I don't have what I had before.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm in a bit of a unique spot with the content that I develop can be quite reflective. So I do quite often reflect on how far I've come and I go, holy shit. I don't know if I can say that word on here.
Yes, you can.
But I think, holy shit, like I have lost almost 50 kilos. The life that I was living before you couldn't even compare it to now in terms of quality, the movement that I'm able to do, the joy that I can experience, the freedom that I have. Like, it's incomparable.
Well, and I think that's what your audience loves. Okay. They love the fact that you're genuine.
Yeah.
You're showing a full spectrum of emotions and it's not just pretty pictures all the time.
No.
You're smashing goals.
Yeah.
It's realistic. They can relate to it. And that's what gravitates people towards your journey is like, okay, look, Alex can have a bad day.
Yeah.
I'm having a bad day.
Oh, absolutely.
And so they can really reflect on that. Let's talk. I think it's important to talk about body image because you did touch on the point that it's, yes, your life has changed, but it was actually not so much about the physical appearance and the weight loss, because you always like the way you look. It's more of a change in how you're feeling in yourself and things like that, and your quality of life.
Yeah.
But at the same point in time, nice to be able to wear nice clothes and things like that. Tell me more about your thought process around the body image, a little bit more about what it was pre-op and then post-op, and what your goal is, where you want to see yourself.
Sure.
Yeah.
I always really struggled with my body image from like the dawn of time. You know, having grown up as the chubby kid, you were kind of always comparing yourself to your peers. When I moved to London in 2019, I kind of discovered what is called the body positive movement, or the body acceptance movement, and intuitive eating. And when you are in a larger body, it can be really freeing to start to accept what you look like, or have a neutral approach to what you look like not caring quite so much.
Yeah.
But eventually my weight continued to balloon, and that's when it started impacting my quality of life. And that's when I was like, you know what, I'm really not happy with my body. I also wasn't really happy with the way that I looked, because when I saw photos or videos of myself, it's almost like a reverse body dysmorphia, where I'd look in the mirror and I used to see what I look like now.
Yeah.
But I'd see photos of myself. So now I'm a size anywhere between a 12 to a 16. But at the time I was a size 22 to 24. And so when you think you look like this, but then you're seeing a photo of yourself and you're 50 kilos heavier than what's in your mind, it's really jarring. And you kind of feel like, I guess Taylor Swift describes it as like the monster on the hill. It's a horrible feeling. And so going into this, you know, whilst I didn't be like, I want my body to look like this, I want my weight to be like this, I definitely knew I wanted to be smaller, partly because I wasn't happy with the way that I looked. I did feel unattractive at the weight that I was, but I think a lot of that had to do with one, society does treat people in larger bodies quite poorly. You're often ignored. You can't shop at certain places, so you're excluded. You know, if you want to date, you're not really seen as attractive. So, you know, it can be quite upsetting. And so I knew being in a smaller body would lead to more opportunities. But going into this, as I mentioned, I think it's really important not to have concrete goals of, I want to have like abs of steel, or, you know, I want to have the perfect hourglass figure, or I want to be 60 kilos. Because the reality is your body's going to, I don't think the goal of having bariatric surgery is to be on a diet forever, right?
Yeah.
What you want to be doing is finding a way of eating that you can sustain for the rest of your life, that is nourishing for your body, and is achievable for you. And if you're dieting, you're not going to be able to do that, and you're going to continue to have the same problems post-bariatric surgery, which is why I think it is so important when people go into this journey, like I have, is to really think about, what do you want your body to do for you? Do you want to be a runner? Do you want to be a cyclist? Do you want to be able to do 50 push-ups? Do you want to go to the shops and be able to shop for clothes? Do you want to feel confident dating? And then, because that's what my dietitian said to me recently. She's like, how are you feeling about your weight? And I said, honestly, really happy. Couldn't care less if I lost any more kilos, because I can do all of these things now. Is my body perfect? Absolutely not. Like, you know, I've got a bit of jiggle there, and that's really normal post-bariatric. So like, I've lost almost 50 kilos. Of course, I'm going to have a little bit of flab, and I'm okay with that. It's not the end of the world. And I think we just need to be more accepting that different people's bodies look different. Sometimes you'll have similar features to someone else. Sometimes you might not. There's no such thing as a perfect body, because beauty standards are always changing. Like in the 2000s, and as it's starting to become trending again, is that real heroin chic, super skinny.
Yes.
And I honestly cannot think of anything worse. It is so unhealthy. And then, you know, in the 2010s and whatnot, we had, you know, the big bum, the flat tummy, you know, whatever. Like, it's always changing. And if you have a goal to look a certain way or to be a certain weight, You will never be satisfied because you will get there and think that it's not good enough. I've been there before, and I remember looking at photos of myself when I was 22 and probably 74 kilos with an eating disorder, and I thought I was fat then.
Yeah.
I'm 85-ish kilos now? Stoked. Like we've got especially millennials who grew up in that whole heroin chic era, and anyone before that as well has just got such a warped perception of what a normal body is, because we grew up with, those celebrity comparisons and shaming and all that sort of thing. And it's just nonsense. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
You just got to be happy with what your body can do.
So if you had to summarize, your journey in one sentence, how would you summarize it?
I don't necessarily think a sentence. I think there's probably 2 words I would use to describe my journey.
Right.
First is self-discovery, and the second is joyful, because that's what this has led me to. I've really learnt so much about myself throughout this journey, and through understanding myself more and what I do and what I don't like and the type of person that I want to be in the life that I want to lead, that's honestly led me to finding just so much joy in like the little things and the mundane and all that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Alex, thank you. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
for joining us. We couldn't be happier for you. We've watched your journey.
Yes.
We've watched the highs and lows, and we can't wait to see where it goes from here.
Me too. I could not be prouder to be part of the Formulite family. I really appreciate all the opportunities and everything that we've done together, the work that we've done, and I'm excited to continue working together and see where my journey ends.
Let's bring on the new shake flavour, hey?
Really excited.
Strawberry matcha, here we come.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this podcast today. I hope you've enjoyed a little chat I had with Alex. If you'd like more information about the Formulite products and even look up favourites from Alex, go to www.formulite.com.au. And if you want to follow Alex's journey, you can find her at Keeping Up with Alex Lauren.